Good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you may be, or good evening, or good night. This is Jen at JensArtyInclinations, a place to create, share, and play.
I've discovered that while I'm junk journaling, a lot of it is like a creative practice, and I think it helps us in all of our art, and it's a great place to also display all of our art. So I thought, what a fun, easy, beginner-friendly way to do creative exercises, improve our artistic confidence, and, refine your personal style, or find it if you haven't found it already. So I hope you'll join me, and, we'll just play about weekly-ish. Hello again, everyone. All right, hands up who has lots of scraps and, some packaging. So I have all of these scraps and I thought it's about time I did something with them. So I have these pieces of packaging that I just cut down so that they're easy to stash away. So I'm going to grab a few of those and I'm going to use gesso. So you can use black or white or a combination. Then I've also got some inks for what I want to do with it next, and that is some stenciling. So look, that pretty much gives away everything that we're going to do. So that is all good though. So firstly, I'm just using PVA glue. It's actually PVA with a little bit of water added just to make it nice and spreadable. And all I'm doing is I'm tearing up some scraps and I'm putting them down. I'm kind of making them rectangles, but I'm not too fussed. I'm not making them very even. So you could make these really steampunk and make them very crisp edges and all that sort of thing. All I'm doing, and I'm not worried about colours going with each other or anything because all of this is going to be covered. So I'm just using different pieces of scrap that I have. And, there's a circle I cut out. So that adds a bit more texture. What I'm doing in this layer is I'm building up texture. And I think that this is another great creative practice because it's really nice to find different ways to build up texture. So you might have a whole heap of circles that you've cut out or die cuts. This would look quite amazing with all the same kind of die cuts just out of regular copy paper, and then you'd have that die cut layered texture behind your piece. So have a play. Just have a look at what you've got, have a play. Different kinds of papers will give you different feels. And what we'll be doing is we'll be putting gesso all over the top of these to completely cover them so that then they're all the same colour. However, you've got that texture of the little edges of the paper and the squares inside it. So it just adds a little bit of dimension to your piece. All I'm doing here is little tags or journal cards. I guess they're kind of both, but So I laid them down in different ways. I went from the corners, I went out from the middle, I did all kinds of different things. So even in this process, have a play. It's a great way to practice doing your collaging. It's a great way to practice, maybe putting down some different kinds of tissue paper or napkins. Just a good process to learn, and you'll end up with, as we always do in junk journals, something useful at the end. Alrighty, so all I'm using here is one of those little plastic spatulas to just put, ended up just using white gesso, but to just put gesso over it. Remember, you can add ink or paint to your gesso to colour it up. You can also use just a piece of cardboard to spread it. You can use your fingers. You can use a sponge. You can add a bit of texture over it if you want to put some impressions over the top, like maybe the top of a bottle to put some circles around it. You can even actually draw in it before it dries, and then you can get a pattern in it on top of the texture, which would add another dimension again. So all I did with my stencils was I just used inks, and these little daubers that I've got, I sort of tapped and rubbed, and what did I use? I used some yellow, some green. I wanted them fairly vivid but still subtle as well. I then used some borders next, and I did the borders in a dark walnut stain, just so that there was a bit of contrast on the piece. But here I'm just adding a little bit of green. It kind of makes a background on your piece, and then you could actually leave them at this point. You could leave them before this point, and you could add the colours to go with whatever project you're working on at the moment. So this is where I added the walnut stain with all the borders. I had those lovely chevrons, I had triangles in this border piece, and yeah, that just lifted it off. It's really hard to see on camera, but it was really nice, the contrast that actually gave. So as I said, that was just walnut stain. So it wasn't black, but it's a very dark brown so that it lifts up off the green and the yellow. So just doing the last one here, putting in, it had these little triangle things and it didn't come out as deeply as what I thought it would, but I really liked the result. So I just added a little bit more with the chevrons because I felt like, I don't know, I always put them in. I've got all kinds of different things. I've got stamps like that. I've got impressions that you use in clay like that. I've got, as you see, stencils like that. I've got ones I cut out myself. I really like little chevrons and arrows and squares and circles in like little lines or groupings. I just really like the look of them on your pieces. So there they are, just with the simple stenciling. So then I thought it was a really bright blue that I was adding next. Can't remember the name of it, sorry, but I really did it subtly. I didn't want it to, really jump out. I just wanted it to sort of, almost not be seen. So really, I think mission accomplished. Now, I had just a really simple letter stencil, letter and numbers, and so I used my grey this time and I just put them in and I love how they turned out. Again, it's just subtle in the background. We may not even see it once we've decorated it, but it's really fun. So, when you're doing them, you could actually do a whole composition just at this point with just your stencils and have one shape or something as your feature or your focal point in the middle, and that would be all you'd need. I just decided that I'd take them a bit further, just, to show you some of the things that you can do. And so I'm just finishing off here. As I said, it was just the grey that I used, and so I just kind of added a few numbers and I added a few letters. I just wanted lots of interest and lots of layers behind all of this. So then I just trimmed off the edges. Again, though, you don't have to do that. And then the next step I did was to have a think about what kind of decorations I wanted on them. So I decided that I would just add a little background stamp over the top, just gently, so it's almost like a ghost stamp of a bit of text and so forth. And then I put a little piece of fabric on the bottom of each, some Tracy labels, and then a butterfly. And that was pretty much finished. So I did the first one just to see how it looked and then realised I hadn't inked around the edges and I hadn't rounded my corners and I hadn't put the paper on the back that I wanted to put. I could have left it as the plain card, but I thought it'd be really nice just with a bit of coffee dyed paper on the back because, I love the extra texture again. So yeah, I faffed about a bit here and then I went and did the corners and the inking around all of them after. So that's kind of the look of all of them. So much you can do here. You could just add a word and nothing else. You could add a beautiful flower. You could get some flowers from the garden, some dried flowers, all sorts of things. And now if you do like to ink, if you just run a little bit of ink over or an oil pastel or a chalk, like a chalky pastel, then you can also pick up that texture and it adds, just a little bit of shadow and dimension into it as well. So there you are. I popped a little hole in the top. I've got one of those little punches that just lets you do those little slot holes, a slot punch. I think it's called a punch that you use for conference tags and things like that. I just, grabbed it off eBay. I think it was one of those ones that was $1, free postage. And I thought, gosh, it'll never cut anything. And it did. I was so pleased. And then I just put, butterflies and a moth on the end there. Oh, moth on both ends, I think. And then I decided that I would just staple in some material tags. So just a bit of seam binding, bit of material and a bit of lace. So there you are. There they all are. And I did decide that I would just add a few more labels. So I added a hand-stamped word and the other ones are just Tracy labels. So I wanted that little bit of a wraparound effect. Aren't they cute? I hope you have a go. Don't forget you can use the hashtag if you want to share them on your social media. But I hope that you've enjoyed. I hope it gives you another idea for something that you might like to make yourself. And most of all, I hope you have fun and that you keep creating. Take care, everyone. I'd love it if you could leave me a comment below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed what you saw today. And of course, please subscribe if you haven't already. I will see you next time. And in the meantime, keep creating. Enjoy.